Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is an Inkberry Holly. This is Inkberry Holly, an evergreen shrub that is native to the southeast United States. It actually produces a flower and a fruit that the birds like in the wintertime. Inkberry hollies can reach 4 to 6 feet in height and maybe 4 to 5 feet in width, but they are definitely, the growth on these are more vertical, so it does grow taller than wide. I have these on my foundation and they can actually be kept in the 3-foot range pretty much permanently. Inkberry hollies are native to the southeast United States and will grow pretty much in all areas of the southeast United States. But they're also very cold hardy. Very few leafy evergreens grow north of zone 7 or zone 6 for sure. But this one does. This one actually can grow up into zone 5 and some people say even into zone 4, but certainly hardy in zones 5 to 9. Inkberry hollies are moderately slow growing. We might get about 6 inches of growth out of these in a season in the ground. Inkberry hollies would prefer a half a day sun or more all the way to full sun. These will grow in quite a bit of shade, but they end up being very, very thin. So I think you need at least half of the midday sun all the way up to full sun to keep them very full all the way to the base. In terms of where we would use Inkberry hollies, this is a perfect foundation plant. If you have windows that are 3 feet or lower, you can definitely keep it in that range, or you could use it on the corner of a foundation. These are easy to tree form. You can actually take the leaves and the lower branches off and create a small tree with these. They can even be topiaried. I've seen people create a single stalk and then, a topiary ball on top, which is kind of interesting. And then they're great in mass planting, and it even grows, it really does grow tall enough in time if you have a sunny space to actually create a border between you and a neighbor. Inkberry hollies bloom with little white flowers in the late spring and early summer. It's not particularly showy. They're just small white flowers along the stems, but they do become a berry in the fall and early winter that the birds enjoy. In terms of planting our Inkberry hollies, this plant is susceptible to root rot. And so we're going to want to elevate it some when we plant it to keep it from staying wet, for long periods of time. And we would definitely never want to bury this plant in mulch. That's going to be an important component to growing Inkberry hollies. They're really super low maintenance as long as we put a little thought into them when we're planting them. So we'll dig the depth of this root ball, dig our hole that deep and maybe twice as wide as the width of this root ball. And then if you have clay-based soils, I will mix some pine bark soil conditioner, which is what we're growing this stuff in. It's a composted pine bark material. We mix 50-50 with the clay. So you dig your hole, that clay that's now on the side of the hole, we'll mix that with the pine bark and we'll use that as our planting medium. I'll put about this much of that back in the bottom of that hole so that when we pull this out of the container and set it into the hole, it's actually sitting up a little bit. And then we'll pull our soil up to the edge of that and then we'll lightly mulch it, and that will prevent it from staying wet. It'll shed water away from the top of this plant. If you have very sandy soils and you're in a coastal area, and this plant will grow in coastal areas, you can use peat moss or cow manure or compost to actually hold some water in place between rains. That would be helpful to this plant. Like almost all hollies, certainly when you pull this thing out of the container, it's going to be root bound, meaning all the roots are just going to be really, really matted together. So when you pull it out, we're going to want to pull at those roots some just to break them apart and get these roots starting to go outward instead of continuing to wrap around one another. Hollies are very vulnerable in the future to having those roots end up killing one another if they keep wrapping around one another, and then you start losing branches at the time on top of the plant. I frequently see that in landscapes that are 2 to 5 years old, and the builder put in whatever cheap hollies they could find across the front, and the landscaper didn't break those roots up. They just start dying one branch at a time in the future. So that's very important. Pull the roots apart. If it's too matted together, you can actually cut them with the shovel or a small knife, and then that will get them going outward in the future. For the first year after you plant your Inkberry hollies, you will want to check occasionally to see if they need water. If you need to water these, water this entire surrounding area around them, saturate the entire area very, very well. I don't like watering just right at the base of my plants. We want the surrounding soil to be wet so that they have an opportunity to go out and chase after that water. And then we want to let them dry out between waterings. That's very important. Plants don't root out if they have no reason to root out. So we want to allow them to get dry between rains and between watering. Once your Inkberry Hollies are established, I think you'll rarely ever need to water this plant. If it's on a foundation, probably almost never. If it's out in open space or if it's got root competition, you might in that case. And again, same process, water the entire area around the plant. It doesn't do a lot of good watering right at the base of these plants. The surrounding soil will steal that water from your plant. Hollies are acid-loving plants, and an azalea, camellia, rhododendron fertilizer in the spring and perhaps in the early summer, if you were trying to establish it as a screen and you wanted it to grow a little faster, 2 applications in that case would be recommended. You could definitely use holly tone. It's a holly, so it works well on these, and it's an organic option that you can use, and it's also just kind of naturally slow releasing. But I would do it sometime after the worst of your winter temperatures have passed. So I'm in North Carolina here. I'd probably do it right around mid-March. In terms of pruning your Inkberry Hollies, if you do a lot of pruning on this plant, you're going to lose flowers and you're going to lose fruit. If you're growing this plant specifically to feed the birds in the wintertime or other animals that will eat these berries, I think that this is probably not a great foundation plant for you. You're probably going to want to plant this in open space where you can allow this plant to get bigger in time. And if you ever needed to prune it in that case, I would probably cut the thing down 3 or 4 feet in one shot and then let it come back so that you can go 3 or 4 or 5 years allowing the cycle of the flowers and the berries, and you just sacrifice 1 year by doing that. If you're putting this on a foundation, you're almost certainly going to have to come out and shape this thing, once or twice a year once it's established. And in doing that, you're going to lose some of the flowers and you're going to lose some of the berries. Doesn't matter for me. I have this thing on my foundation. It's a perfect little green ball. I don't really care about the flowers or the berries in the particular application that I'm using this plant for. In terms of insect and disease problems on Inkberry Hollies, we don't really see a lot of insect problems on them. We will get some scale insects on them if they're under stress. We do get some foliar issues. This plant right here actually has a little bit of leaf spot issue right here. I don't know how well it'll be able to be seen, but we do get a little spotting on the leaves. We're overhead irrigating them in a nursery setting, and that tends to amplify it. The foliage should be drier in the ground, probably won't be an issue in the ground really. Inkberry Hollies are very deer resistant. They rarely get sampled by them. One issue we might have with Inkberry Hollies is they are susceptible to Phytophthora root rot. If you'll follow my planting instructions about elevating them, then we probably won't have any root rot issues in the ground. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance native Inkberry Holly. Thank you for watching, and if this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you may have about Inkberry Hollies or any other broadleaf evergreen shrubs. Thanks again.